Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today for Kids at the PUNLA Coffee Table. My name is Kip.
I'm Zoe.
I'm Maya. And I'm Ayla.
And they are the kids at the PUNLA Coffee Table. Today we're going to be doing one of our studies on the heroes of the Bible. And we're going to be in the book of Judges today, chapters 6 through 8, and the story of Gideon. Does anybody know anything about the story of Gideon? Go ahead, Ayla.
Yeah. That he led how many was it? But he led just a few soldiers against thousands.
Well, he did an amazing thing with very few people, that's right. So let's start with a prayer and then let's read and see what the Bible has to say, okay? Anybody want to start us with a prayer today? Go ahead, Zoe.
God, thank you for this day we get to have, and thank you for the PUNLA Christian ministries we do for the people in USA, and thank you for the great times we get to have. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you, Zoe. So, okay, before we get started with our story, this story comes from the book of Judges. Does anybody know what a judge is?
A judge is a leader.
In the Bible, a judge was a leader. After the nation of Israel was brought out of Egypt by Moses, they went into the promised land, and Joshua was their first leader. But after Joshua died, different times they would be
new leader.
They would get a new leader, and those new leaders were called judges. The reason they would get new leaders is, let me give you a quick history, right? So we started with Moses, and then Joshua came in, and then they would forget about God and start doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Go ahead, Ayla, you have something to say?
And each time they did something bad, God would send somebody to correct it.
Well, he'd send someone in that would oppress them or
help them.
No, usually it was bad people would come in first. Go ahead, Maya.
And then a judge would come in and do something and scare the other bad people
Well, the
away.
judge would come in and rescue the people from that person that was being bad.
But when
or that
the
country.
judge died, then they would go back and back, and the cycle would begin again.
Yep, and the cycle is called the cycle of apostasy, and we learn about this in the book of Judges. So the people of God would stop listening to God and do bad things, and then a group of bad guys would come in and they would steal and hurt the people of God. Lean back a little bit, please. Right, so that's the cycle of apostasy. So then God's people would cry out to God and say, "Oh, come help me." And God would raise up a judge or a leader, and that leader would come and rescue from the bad people. And so we're going to learn about one of those rescuers today.
Then when you say, "Oh, come help me," it's funny.
Oh, what?
Oh, come help me.
Oh, come help me. Sorry, this is me. So our story takes place when a group of bad guys called the Midianites were taking advantage of the Israelites. They were coming in, and a huge group of them, we think maybe over 100,000, maybe 200,000 people.
Oh, that's
There's a place where we're going to read about where it tells how you could count them, and it's more than you can count.
I can count to 100.
And God talked to a young guy who thought he was unimportant and raised him up to be a leader to rescue Israel. So
from 0 to 10.
Yeah, he was a 0 and then he became a 10. And Gideon's thought to be one of the great leaders of Israel.
Even Deborah?
Well, Deborah's another judge.
Oh,
it's before his
was
part.
Deborah and a great leader too?
Well, we don't know a lot about Deborah, but the story of her and Barak is a really good story, and we can do that one another time, okay? So let's concentrate on Gideon today. So we're going to open up to Judges chapter 6, and we're going to read verses 11 through 16. And in 11:16 is when the angel of the Lord comes to Gideon. And I think this speaks to what Gideon thought of himself. All right? Yeah, that one. You ready?
No, I'm not. Where? Angels, the
Yeah,
11?
where it says
11?
the angel of the Lord
Lord.
visits Gideon. You ready? And I won't be able to pronounce some of these names, so I'll do my best, but you'll get the idea. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under an oak tree in Ophrah. The oak tree belonged to Joash, who was one of the Abiezrites. I think that's right. People, right. Joash was the father of Gideon. Gideon was separating wheat from chaff in a wine press. Gideon did this to keep the wheat from the Midianites. The angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon and said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Then Gideon said, "Pardon me, sir. If the Lord is with us, why are we having so many troubles? Our ancestors told us he did miracles. They told us the Lord brought them out of Egypt. But now he has left us, and he has allowed the Midianites to defeat us." The Lord turned to Gideon and said, "You have the strength to save the people of Israel. Go and save them from the Midianites. I am the one who is sending you." But Gideon answered, "Pardon me, Lord. How can I save Israel? My family group is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least important member of my family." The Lord answered him, "I will be with you. It will seem like you are fighting only one man." Well, what do you guys think of that?
Easy.
Easy? Really?
Hard.
Fighting one man is easy, but fighting 1,000
Hundreds
men.
of thousands. So, did Gideon think he was very important?
No.
No.
He thought he was just this.
What did the angel say to Gideon when they first met? Go ahead, Amy.
The Lord is with you, mighty warrior.
Yeah, do you think Gideon thought he was a mighty warrior?
He's.
No.
What are you
He
saying?
thought he was the least, right?
He's like, what are you saying? I think you got the wrong
You
guy.
got the wrong guy. That's exactly what he thinks. So later on in the story, Gideon was scared again, and he wanted a sign. So God asked Gideon, "Go fight the Midianites." And the leader of Israel was not so great. So let's go on to chapter 6, verse 36, and let's see what Gideon...
What?
6:36. So it's down here. So
Where? This one?
yeah, well, okay. Well, let's back up just a little bit. So one of the things that you learn is that Gideon was scared, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he hadn't become a big, strong leader yet. So he was still.
Was when David fought Goliath, was he younger?
We don't know exactly how old David was, and we don't know how old Gideon was.
He might
They
have
just
been
know they were young men.
They might have been the same age when they fought.
They could have been. I don't know.
Or David
So let's go
was.
ahead and let's read this, okay?
Yeah.
So starting at verse 36,
Then.
where it's
Gideon
Then.
tears down the altar of Baal.
36.
36.
Then Gideon said to God, "You said you would help me save Israel. I will put some wool on the threshing floor. Let there be dew only on the wool, but let the ground be dry. Then I will know what you said is true. I will know that you will use me to save Israel." And that is just what happened. Gideon got up early the next morning and squeezed the wool and a full bowl of water from the wool. Now, is that amazing? You think it was a good idea to question God?
Not
Probably not.
even a bit.
Let's see what Gideon did next. Then Gideon said to God, "Don't be angry with me. let me ask just one more thing. Please, let me make one more test. Let the wool be dry while the ground around it is wet. And then that night God did that very thing. Just the wool was dry, but the ground around it was wet. Wow. Can you imagine?
No.
You ask God to do something
Listen.
crazy like that, and it actually happened twice. So,
He just acts the opposite.
why do you think Gideon asked for a sign?
I think he asked for a sign
To make sure
that it wasn't like God was trying to tell him, like it was a like non good God to test him.
Let's see what Alex has to say.
That to make sure maybe it was not a dream.
Yeah, I think he was unsure because Gideon didn't have any confidence, and he wasn't sure that he was hearing God correctly. And I think that's the reason God honored his request for a sign even twice, is he didn't want to he wanted to make sure this wasn't just an accident. He wanted to make sure he was hearing God, and I think it was an honest request. Gideon wasn't resisting God. He just wasn't sure he was hearing God. And I think sometimes we have that same problem. So you think that's why Gideon asked twice?
Mm-hmm.
But they're miraculous signs. So what happened next? And I'm going to just tell you a little bit of the story. He called for warriors to come, not yet. And 32,000 men came to join Gideon to fight the Midianites. But you know what God said?
What?
It's too many.
Where is it?
I'm not reading out the Bible, baby.
Too many?
I'm paraphrasing. I'll tell you where to go. We're going to go to chapter 7, verse 12 next.
Where is it?
We'll wait till we get to the story. So 32,000 men came to join Gideon, and God said, that's too many. So Gideon told anyone that is scared to go home. How many of those 32,000 do you think went home?
A lot.
22,000 out of the 32,000 went home because they were scared. So that left 10,000 warriors. You know what God said next?
What?
Too many.
What?
Yeah, he said too many. So Gideon took his men to the water to drink. And the water would be like a stream or a pond, someplace like that, so they could get water. And God said this, it said, if they take the water in their hands and lap like a dog, they can stay. So they'd take water like this and go, they could stay. Some people would put their face down to the water and drink. So how many do you think were left?
10? 100?
300.
Oh.
300 warriors. So Gideon had 300 warriors. Can you guess how many Midianites there were?
10,700.
Well, let's open up to Judges chapter 7, verse 12. Somebody want to read that for me?
Can I read just
verse 12.
The Midianites and
Amalekites.
The Midianites
And the Amalekites. And all the people
from the east were camped in the valley. There were so many of
them
they seemed
like locusts.
Like locusts. They had so
Many camels.
No one could count them.
There were as many as there were grains of
sand on the seashore.
So how many grains of sand do you think are on a seashore?
1,000.
Basically, it's a way of saying
1,300, 400,
yeah. Basically, when you looked into the valley, there were people everywhere.
I bet
It was
really
impossible
crowded.
to count.
I bet
This
it
is
was
a big
crowded.
valley. This is like the Grand Canyon type valley. It's a
I
big
bet it
place.
was kind of crowded though, if there was like a lot.
There are a lot of people. So Gideon has 300, and he's going up against so many people you can't even count them. What do you think God's going to give him to fight with?
Him.
Well,
He might just walk. I think a torch.
well, you know the story, okay? So do you think Gideon can beat hundreds of thousands of soldiers with his 300 guys? Well, we know God can do amazing things, right? God can do miracles, and the weapons that he chose for his warriors is in chapter 7, verse 15 and 16. Ayla, can you read verse 15 and 16?
The man's friend said, wait, 15 to 16 or
Yeah.
14?
15.
Can you help me?
When
Gideon
heard about the dream and what it meant, he worshipped
God,
And then
then Gideon
Gideon
went back to the camp
back to
of
the camp
Israel.
He called out to them, "Get up, the Lord has defeated the army of Midian for you." Then Gideon divided the 300 men into 3 groups. He gave each man a trumpet and an empty jar.
And a burning torch
was
inside the
each
jar. So think about it. Stop. So the weapons that Gideon handed out for the big battle was a trumpet, an empty jar
With a
with a torch in it.
I think that's for light.
I guess that's kind of weird, isn't it?
Or maybe you can just hold it up for.
I don't know.
maybe hurt their eyes.
Well, you know, if you put a torch in a jar, it makes the light so you can't really see it from a distance. All you'll be able to see it on the ground where you're walking. So it might help them be able to move around while it's in the
So
jar.
that the other people don't see
They
it.
don't see them coming, right?
So
With their
that they-
trumpets. What do you think you're going to do with a trumpet?
They're
Yeah.
gonna make a noise to retreat before we kill
So
them.
think about it. God gave them a empty jar, a trumpet, and a little fire to defeat a gigantic army. How do you think that's going to work out?
Perfect.
Well, because it's God, right?
Mhm.
Let's read verses 19 to 21.
19.
Is on the next page.
This is.
Can I read this?
Go ahead, Ayla.
I want to read
Go
it.
ahead, Ayla.
So Gideon and the 100 men went
With him.
with him came to the edge of the enemy camp. They came just after the enemy
Had changed
had changed
guards.
It was during the middle watch of the night.
Hold on for a second. The middle watch of the night is like in the middle of the night. That's like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., something like that. So most of the people would have been sleeping. And they would have been sleeping for a while. So go ahead there.
Then Gideon and his
His
men blew their
Trumpets.
and smashed their jars.
Okay.
All 3 groups
Groups
of
of
Gideon's
Gideon's
men blew
Their trumpets.
their trumpets and smashed their jars. They held the torches in their left hand and the trumpets in their
Right
in
hands.
their right hands. Then they shouted, "A sword for the Lord and
For Gideon. So what do you think is going to happen here? In the middle of the night, they smash the jar, so all of a sudden the light goes.
It blows up.
Well, no, it would have been bright. There's no electricity, right? So it'd be really dark. And all of a sudden when they break the jar, all of a sudden this bright light of the torch goes everywhere. 300 lights. So it gets really a lot of light. And they blow this horn, which makes a loud sound. And
Like Jesus was coming through.
well, it's really crazy. So this is what happened. So God used this darkness, and the Midianites are all sleeping. Then when they broke the jar and screamed and yelled, all of a sudden it's like the Midianites are getting up and they don't know what's going on. They start fighting each other. And they start running away. All of them. So Gideon's soldiers didn't have to do anything.
Except smash the jars and play the trumpet.
Yep, they did not even have to fight.
That's easy.
So as the Midianites ran away, more and more people from Israel joined in until they killed all of them.
Wait, they killed them?
It's an army. And they killed all the kings of Midian. And it was they were completely destroyed. So
Yeah.
God did an amazing thing.
Completely?
Completely. So this is a pretty amazing story. I know it's not very cool to kill people, but they were trying to kill the Israelites, and that's what happens in war sometimes. That's scary, huh?
Very scary.
So, what do you think of the story? It's pretty amazing what God can do with very little, right? Someone want to pray to close us today? Go ahead, Mike.
God, thank you for this day. Thank you for people. Thank you for saving the Israelites from
The Midianites.
the Midianites. Thank you for these days. Thank you for everything you have done for us. Amen.
Amen. So thanks for joining us today for our kids at the PUNLA Coffee Table for what we called, or what I called, fire music. So it's, this amazing victory that Gideon had because of God. God actually is the one that had the victory. Gideon really didn't do very much. All he did is he did what God asked him to do. And I think that's the message for us and most of the judges, is when we do what God asks us to do, amazing happens. Right? So until next time.
Hold on.
Okay.
Press like. Press subscribe.
But only if your parents
Ask
say
your parents,
you can.
and you
If you
can
can.
comment if your parents said you can.
Or your parents can comment here or on our website, or you can always
website.
email me directly. Anything else?
No. And
Anything?
bye bye.
So until next time,
God
Goodbye.
bless.
God bless.
God bless.